Hi there, it's Michelle again. Welcome to the second in my series of video slideshows describing my strategy for healthy, indulgent living. I hope that my first strategy video offered you some food for thought, excuse the pun, about a simple and basic approach to a satisfying, healthy, indulgent life. Remember though, this is not a diet, and I feel like I have to keep repeating myself about that because it's such a critical shift in thinking for most of us. Dieting leads to feelings of deprivation in most cases, and that is just not sustainable. And dieting also assumes that foods and that you can be good or bad, and that leads to judgment, and that is just never helpful. On the other hand, not dieting doesn't mean that you can't make wise and educated choices about what you eat. Not dieting doesn't mean you go crazy and just eat anything at any time. You can make wise and educated choices about what you eat to create a healthful and a satisfying wellness balance. And that's what I'm sharing here on this video. So in this video slideshow, I'll be offering my thoughts on how I choose what foods to eat. So how do I choose what makes sense for me to eat? I pay attention to what I'm going to call food scores, and there are a few of them that I'm going to discuss here. And the first of these is energy density, which refers to the amount of calories per weight of food, calories per gram. And the Okinawa diet and the volumetrics diet popularized the energy density concept. In general, you want this to be a low number. You want to have as few calories per weight of food as possible. That means that you get to eat a lot of food. And because I do indulge, and that implies that sometimes I'm eating higher calorie foods than some of the healthy guidelines would recommend, that means that I really do need to be calorie conscious when I'm not indulging. Energy density is pretty important to me. So that's the first of these food scores. Another important food score to pay attention to is the Aggregate Nutrient Density Index, ANDI for short. And that's just the opposite from energy density. You want that to be a high number. ANDI refers to the amount of nutrients per weight for food. So you want your food to have a good nutrient bang for its weight buck. And the website Eat Right America has lists of the nutrient density of different foods. Another food score to pay attention to is the antioxidant potential of food, and you'll find different ways of rating that, but the ORAC, the ORAC value, is one that's become pretty popular. So antioxidants are substances that can protect your cells against the effects of free radicals. And free radicals can damage your cells, and free radicals can play a role in disease. So you want to have foods that have high antioxidants so they neutralize these free radicals. And high antioxidant foods are often called superfoods. Nuts, berries, beans, and even chocolate are often high on antioxidant food lists. A fourth food score to pay attention to is the glycemic index or the glycemic load. And this refers to how quickly the food is converted into sugar in the body. Lower glycemic index foods are converted to sugar more slowly, and that means that they're less taxing on insulin and they keep you feeling fuller longer. As a general rule, whole foods versus processed foods will be lower in glycemic load. And finally, it's useful to pay attention to the omega-3 fat content in food. Now, even though fat was a food villain for many years, and still many of us are attentive to how much fat we take in because fat tends to have more calories per gram of food than other nutrients, our bodies do need fat. And omega-3s are needed to keep our fatty brains running well. And they were also associated with a variety of other health benefits. Omega-3s are considered anti-inflammatory. They might help us with autoimmune conditions, and they are implicated in cancer prevention. So it's pretty good to take in omega-3s. You could take them in supplements, but in terms of food, oily fishes and seeds like flax seeds and chia seeds are good sources of omega-3s. And on the website, you'll find links to lists of foods and all of these food scores. So overall, what you want to do, of course, is choose foods that are low in energy density, high in nutrient density, and if applicable to the food, low glycemic, high antioxidant, and high in omega-3s. You also want to take a look at the ingredient lists on foods that you buy, and foods with long ingredient lists or ingredient lists full of chemicals are typically not your best food choices. I also, when I look at food labels, I pay attention to the fiber content, the fat content, and the sugar content. And if the food has more fiber than fat or sugar, I tend to think that that's going to be a good choice. So then, how do I decide what to eat? I let myself, and I recommend eating as much as you want of foods, like I said, that are low in energy density and high in nutrient density. So here's some of these. Vegetables. Surprise! Like you didn't know vegetables was going to be a good one. Leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower and broccoli and cabbage. Asparagus, artichokes, eggplants, peppers, and summer squash all satisfy that criteria. And some fruits like apples, citrus fruits, fresh berries, and tomatoes. Tomato is actually a fruit, even though we tend to think of it as a vegetable. In terms of protein, light tofu and egg whites are lower in energy density and high in nutrient density. And in terms of drinks, tea is a great choice, and of course water, which I'll be talking about more in a little bit. Now, these foods might not sound especially exciting, especially if you're not used to eating them much, but I recommend starting by working them slowly into your meals, and then eventually coming to the point where you build your meals around them. Find ones that you like, develop a palate for them, start introducing them into your diet as an experiment once a week. There are many ways that I'll discuss on my psychology page for how you can do that. It is totally worth it. Now, there are other foods that are high on the food scores, but they're also higher in calories, and so I recommend enjoying those in moderation because calories do add up really fast, especially with foods like nuts and beans. I used to add a handful of walnuts to my salads for a while until I realized that that handful of walnuts had about 400 calories, which more than doubled the calories in my whole big salad. So I had to put in fewer walnuts, instead of a handful, a couple of tablespoons instead. So these are good foods that you can enjoy in moderation to be healthful. Nuts, like I mentioned, wine, chocolate, avocado, flax seeds, chia seeds, beans, beets, which have a lot of sugar in them. Winter squashes also have sugar. Plums, prunes, dried fruits like raisins, also grapes, oats, and oily fishes with their high omega-3 content. All of these are nice and healthy, but they're pretty high in calories, so you just can't go to town with them. Dried berries, also like acai berries and goji berries that are getting a lot of press now, also a lot of calories. Add them in very small quantities. And grass-fed beef is also high in omega-3, but again, high in saturated fat and high in calories, so enjoy those in moderation. This is also a good time for me to mention spices that show up on antioxidant lists. Cinnamon is a good one. It may lower blood sugar. It's considered anti-inflammatory. It's considered, as I said, to be an antioxidant. And the research tends to say that if you add a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of cinnamon to your diet on a daily basis, it can be pretty healthful for you. And cinnamon is pretty delicious, so it's not that difficult to do if you have oatmeal or pretty much experiment with adding cinnamon to anything. My son turned me on to adding cinnamon to greens. Didn't sound good to me, but it's delicious. Another one, turmeric. Turmeric gives curry its yellow color, and I searched the research. I don't really see a clear dosage, but there are indications that turmeric works well in combination with black pepper, and it might have really powerful anti-inflammatory benefits. It's used a lot in traditional Indian medicine. I've seen it implicated in arthritis research, Alzheimer's research, cancer research, and it's considered an antifungal. Turmeric is available not just as a spice but also as a supplement, and I take a turmeric supplement every day because it's really tough to eat a lot of turmeric. It's a nice, delicious spice in small amounts. So if you want to get probably enough turmeric, a supplement is a good idea. Other spices like thyme, mint, oregano, tulsi, which is also known as holy basil, ginger. It's probably good to add those to your diet, but I'm not really sure if you could take in enough of them to make a big difference, but again, it can hurt, and it certainly adds variety and interest and great taste and satisfaction to your diet. So here are some really low energy density foods that you can eat if you're a kind of person who has a big appetite and sometimes needs more food to fill up. Cucumbers are great, watermelon. These are just foods that are pretty high in water. So you're getting a lot of water in you, but you also get the bulk of the food. Shirataki noodles, which are made from a yam fiber, and frankly they're an acquired taste, and I don't know if anyone can even acquire the taste, but they have low to no calories and are a good pasta substitute. Also bran crisp breads like Gigi crisp breads. They're nice and crunchy, and sometimes it's fun to have something crunchy, but they're not too tasty, so you're probably not gonna binge on them. And vegetable broth or fat-free chicken broth. Sometimes I like to pre-fill myself, if you will, before a meal with a cup or two of broth. Maybe I'll add some other veggies to them. A very low-calorie and tasty way to fill your tummy. Now, in terms of water, there's some conflicting research about how much water you need. Personally, I find that I feel better when I drink a lot of water. I probably drink between a half a gallon to a gallon of water a day, and that might be because I exercise. It might be more than a lot of people do. When I'm outside, when it's warm, I drink more water. Another good reason I think to drink water is because a lot of times people confuse hunger with thirst, and they'll be eating when actually all they need is water, and that would satisfy them. So that's a way to take in a lot of unnecessary calories. So I try to make sure I'm always drinking water. Another reason to drink water is that when you're thirsty, it puts the body into a stress state, and stress is just really bad for you. And stress also can lead to overeating and emotional problems, physical problems. Sometimes I drink just plain water, but sometimes I like to drink water with a slice of lemon in it, water with some cucumber in it, and sometimes I drink seltzer. Sometimes I add a splash of juice or some concentrated tea to my seltzer. It's a nice way to get a lot of water into you. So anyway, that's the end of this presentation on how I choose my foods. In the next video, I'll share how I shop and how I prepare my meals. So I'll see you soon.